Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Colonel John Lloyd. I'm the commander of the Pittsburgh District and district engineer. First, I just want to say, it's raining out there, but it's still a far better day to be out at a lock and dam, Senator Casey, than probably in D.C. I just want to welcome Senator Casey, your staff, local officials, members of the Inland Waterways community, to Emsworth Lock and Dam, which is the first navigation facility on the Ohio River. Emsworth is one of the 23 locks and dams that the Pittsburgh District operates and maintains on the upper Ohio River Basin. It is the oldest and largest network of locks and dams in the Corps' National Inland Marine Transportation System as well. So this morning I was reading an article, and according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, the inland waterways are one of the most overlooked and vital parts of the nation's infrastructure. Most of the locks and dams, certainly within our region and throughout the nation, have already reached the 50-year lifespan they were built for. So it's raining out there. We actually have some barges coming through the lock right now. But I want to acknowledge just the men and women and the employees of the Pittsburgh District, specifically the lock operators, who do this day in, day out, regardless of the weather, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, cold, ice, whatever it is. They are out here 365 days, 24 hours a day, maintaining this infrastructure. And as old and aged as it is, they do an absolute remarkable job of doing that for the nation. I'm honored to serve side by side with them. So I just want to thank my team. If you give them a round of applause, I appreciate that. And I also just want to acknowledge Senator Casey. Thank you so much. This is the second time we've had a chance to meet out on a lock and dam. Sir, it's a privilege to serve with you. And I know you're as passionate as I am about infrastructure of the region and how important it is to industry in ensuring its reliability. And Marianne and the entire industry team, I just want to thank you as well. This is really a team effort at the end of the day, where you have the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, industry partners, and then congressional leaders working together to ensure this is a priority for the nation and the region. So thanks, Senator Casey, for being out here today. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of the Port of Pittsburgh Commission, Marianne.
Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you, Senator Casey. I can look back at February of 2012 on a very cold day on the river where he announced the introduction of the River Act. And the result of that bill being passed in the Senate was a successful authorization of WRDA 2014. And what did that mean to this region? It meant efficient funding to the Lower Mon project for several years. And we thank you. And to go beyond that, with the industry users on the river, the boat operators, they wanted to increase their diesel tax to be able to supplement these projects. As you know, 50% comes from General Treasury, 50% is from the commercial users of the river, and they are the only users of the river that pay any additional money to be on those rivers. And they wanted to take an increase to make sure that their Inland Waterways Trust Fund was funded to keep these projects going. And there you were again with the ABLE Act and getting that authorized in an environment that was very much against any kind of tax increases, and you were able to get that done. So thank you again. And obviously 2016 was difficult, keeping track of the study, making sure it got done so that we can be in what is the Wind Act of 2016. And with that authorization, now we have the opportunity to get the Upper Ohio Navigation Project funded and on its way. And, thanks to the Army Corps, because they do a good job, a great job actually, with very limited resources, keeping these locks and dams going. And obviously, unscheduled closures can create quite an expense to people in the industry. And I think you'll learn about that a little more as we move on. I'm going to talk a little bit about the speakers that are kind of going to set the stage of how important these locks and dams are to the region and to the nation. Our first speaker is Peter Stepbeich. He's CEO and Chairman of Campbell Transportation. Campbell Transportation has over 15 facilities on the inland waterways, over 600 barges, over 41 vessels, and handle over 40 million tons of freight in this region. He is a vice chairman of the Port of Pittsburgh Commission and serves on the executive committees for the Waterway Council, Inc., National Waterways Foundation, and the American Waterway Operators. So not only is he a leader here regionally to keep this, he is a leader nationally to make sure the entire industry is operating as a system. So thank you, Peter, for all the work you do. Our second speaker, Matt Smith, is president of the Chamber of Commerce. He has really embraced our cause and our infrastructures, and we appreciate the support and the partnership. I'll just go closer to the mic to not waste time. And he's been a real advocate for this region and speaks well and walks the hill like we walk the hill. So thank you, Matt, for your partnership. We really appreciate it. So without further ado, Peter, your turn.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you, Senator Casey, for all your support. As Marianne said, my name is Peter Stefeich. I'm Chairman and CEO of Campbell Transportation Company. We're a Pittsburgh-based river transportation organization. And in terms of the importance, we cannot operate without these structures, period. This is not like a trucking company or a railroad where there's other ways around, you can take a detour. Without these facilities, we cannot move. It shuts us down. To give you an idea, 40 million tons represents, if we were to lose this system, would represent about 2 million truckloads of product that we would see on our roadways. 2 million extra trucks, which probably is not even possible. But in terms of the congestion, the cost of the roads, accidents, and all the impact of that to our regional economy, it's really inconceivable. You know, we're kind of quiet. We're a relatively small industry. We move a lot of tons very efficiently. And because the average person does not come into contact with a barge or a towboat, they really don't realize, for the most part, what goes on out here. This is a system, but there's 12,000 miles of navigable rivers in this country. You know, we're blessed with a very, very unique national treasure, which is our waterways. And our ancestors years ago had the foresight to, you know, back as we developed the West through these very same rivers, to put these locks and dams in place so that we could use the rivers for shipping, not just in high water in the spring, but all year round. Without Emsworth, during low water, you would have a couple of feet of water by the point. You'd have mud and a bunch of fish flopping around. Okay? People don't understand that. So this infrastructure is absolutely critical to what we do. Senator Casey, I know we're talking regionally. We're talking about this particular project, the Upper Ohio study. These facilities were built in the 20s and 30s. They're going to be 100 years old, okay, with a 50-year design life. And now, once again, Colonel, you and all the guys that are working on these structures do a tremendous job in keeping these things operating, you know, with limited resources, really a failing, antiquated system. And, you know, whenever there's a problem, there's an unscheduled outage, guess what? The system comes to a close, and we got to back up, and we have delays, and that brings more cost to our system. So it's absolutely critical. Senator Casey, you understand the value of not just this project, not just what it means to Southwestern Pennsylvania, but to the nation. You know, we're part of a national system, and we're just, you know, we happen to be on the upper end of the Ohio River here, but a lot of the products that come in and out through this very chamber go down to New Orleans, goes to Houston, Texas, and it's all sorts of products. We're going to hopefully see the development of other facilities with the announcement and the development of the Shell cracker plant and other petrochemical facilities. There's an opportunity for a lot of good new jobs, new industry, based on the low cost that we have on our fracking and our gas in the Marcellus Utica area. And without this infrastructure, it's very hard to attract the kind of investment that we're looking at. And a lot of that investment wants to be on the river. So anyway, Senator, thank you for all your support year after year. There's a tremendous bipartisan coalition that supports this. We've got industry, we've got the agricultural community, we've got organized labor, we've got environmental groups like Nature Conservancy, Audubon, Ducks Unlimited. I mean, we have a very, very broad coalition that supports, the investment in the system. So we're going to keep pushing forward, and Senator, we're going to count on you to help us out. And with that, I'm going to introduce Matt Smith, who's the president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Pittsburgh. And Matt, I want to thank you for getting your group of folks and a lot of the big companies here in Pittsburgh focused on this issue and all the work you've done, on the Hill.
Appreciate it.
So thanks.
Thank you. It's really great to be here. As Peter said, part of the collaborative and the coalition supporting not just this project, but robust infrastructure investment in southwestern Pennsylvania that has a material impact. As was said earlier, I'm president of the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce. We're an affiliate of the Allegheny Conference on Community Development. And the Allegheny Conference's mission is to improve the economy and quality of life in the southwestern Pennsylvania region. There is not a project in the infrastructure space that is more important, that will go directly towards that mission of improving the economy and the quality of life in the Pittsburgh region than this particular project. As Peter noted, the movement of cargo on the waterways, in many ways our first interstate highway system, is really dependent on a viable lock and dam system. You talk about energy, chemicals, coal, steel, petroleum. All of the cargoes that literally form the foundation of the Pittsburgh region's economy are moved on these waterways. And that's why it's so critical to the business community. As everyone knows, this is one of the busiest inland ports, processing over 35 million tons a year. And that's why it's so critical to the business community. An extended shutdown would impact industry and business in western Pennsylvania to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And as Peter noted, rerouting goods and commodities as a result of a temporary shutdown, or even worse, an extended period shutdown, would disrupt not only the southwestern Pennsylvania business community and our economy, but the national economy, from the automotive industry to the energy industry in this country, would be significantly and detrimentally impacted by any material shutdown of the lock and dam system. Our organization places a premium on inward business investment, and one of the ways that we can effectively sell the region is by advocating and by supporting our robust multimodal infrastructure system here in southwestern Pennsylvania that allows us to connect in all forms, rail, road, and certainly in this instance, this critical project right here. So for us, we thank the Senator for all your great work, not only with respect to the study, but as we said earlier, including this project in the authorization in the WIN Act. Last year, you were instrumental in that effort. We think it's absolutely critical to build upon that success last year, move the project forward with appropriated funding in this year's, and if there is an infrastructure bill this year in Washington, D.C., and in addition to that, in the fiscal year 2018 budget, absolutely critical to have this money appropriated for this investment. So without further ado, it's really an honor for me to introduce Senator Casey, Pennsylvania's senior senator. He's in D.C. on a day in and day out basis, working to create jobs, protect families. I should note he serves on 4 committees, including the Senate Finance Committee and the Senate Help Committee, and is the highest ranking Democrat on the Special Committee on Aging, and has been a tremendous advocate for infrastructure investment in the Pittsburgh region, and a great friend of the Allegheny Conference and the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce. So thank you, Senator.
Thanks very much, Matt. Thank you. Well, first let me say we're here for a very important purpose. We're here because we believe in creating and maintaining jobs, and we believe in tomorrow. And that's what this whole conversation is about. Making sure that this region, and indeed the nation, fulfills the promise of tomorrow. And if you're in the business of inventing the future, as the people of this region have done for generations, every time people were counting out southwestern Pennsylvania and the people of this region, this this community has figured out a way to not just think about and let the future unfold on its own, but to literally invent the future. And this system, this inland waterway system, has to be a part of that future. In fact, there is no future without it. So, Colonel, I want to thank you first and foremost, and to thank your team. Often there are parts of our government that don't get the praise and the acclaim, the commendation that you have earned and your team has earned. So we're grateful for that. It's a pretty good flag behind me, the American flag and the Army Corps flag. It's great to see both. Marianne, thank you for your leadership. It feels like you and I have been working on this for decades, but it's only been years, and we're grateful. We're getting a little older. And Matt, thanks for your leadership and the Chamber's leadership on this critically important issue in the Allegheny Conference as well. And I would include chambers around the region who have made this a priority. Peter, I wish everyone in Washington could make the case like you can, and to point out how essential this is. And Peter and I have spent a lot of time, and so many others in this room today. It is raining out, but because of the work of people here, we're going to have a lot of bright days. But we still have some hurdles to surmount. Just give you two numbers. There are lots of ways to describe both the urgency and the challenge here. Two numbers. One is 200, and the other is 220. The 200 represents the 200,000 jobs that are dependent upon this system just in southwestern Pennsylvania. Others might know the national number, but that's my home state that I represent, so I know that number. Just imagine the impact of a system that is compromised or could break down in the future and have 200,000 jobs adversely impacted. We should not even try to imagine that. We should just make sure it never happens. The other number of 220, that's the adverse impact annually. $220 million of adverse impact because we don't have the job done yet. So this doesn't have a political label or an ideological label or even the label of one industry. You heard Peter walk through that group of organizations and industries across this country that are coming together to make sure that we get the job done. I know that others have pointed out at different times that just in the world of commodities, the impact, I think it's about 60% of the export grain throughout the country has moved through the waterway system. Petroleum and coal in the low 20% of the whole nation moving through this system. Now, my first letter to one of the first letters I wrote to the President was about this issue, and I think my very first letter to OMB Director Mulvaney was about this issue. And I probably should have said, "Dear Mr. Director, welcome to the executive branch, and I hope you're doing well in your job." But I decided to get right to the point. So maybe I'll be a little more polite to him later. But what I did on March, it's dated today, but what I did in this letter was to outline some of the basic challenges that we have when you have a study that is now into its 14th year, did I say that? 15th year, and $17 million?
Over 17 million.
Yeah. Only in the federal government would someone want a study that goes on and on and on beyond those years and beyond those millions of dollars. So the bottom line of the letter is to urge Director Mulvaney to support funding for the Upper Ohio Navigation Project without delay. And then we walk through some of the consequences of that not happening. But the basic recommendation of this study is that a new 110 by 600 foot lock be constructed at each of the three sites. The three sites being Emsworth, Dashields, and Montgomery. We talk about the importance of the project, and we urge the director and the administration to get to work. In the letter, we cite another number. The Port of Pittsburgh alone handles 35 million tons of cargo each year. And then we do mention the 200,000 jobs impacted that I mentioned before. towards the end of the letter, I refer to the severe negative economic impact of further delaying this project. And this isn't simply about the current administration. This now straddles two. And so if they don't want to hear from me again, they would agree with me and move it forward. But sometimes bureaucracies have a way of freezing up and not getting things done. I think there's going to be continuing and persistent bipartisan urging to move this forward. We don't have time for any more studies, nor are they necessary, nor are they justified in terms of the benefit that this investment brings. So we're about the business of tomorrow, and tomorrow starts today. We want to make sure that we move this forward without delay. And if they want to have a fight about it, we're ready to fight. But I think that most people understand that this can be an area of consensus. Everybody wins. Everybody looks good. The federal government will look good. Our economy will improve. And the people of this region will have something that they have a reasonable expectation, a justifiable expectation of having available to them. An inland waterway system that works, that moves commodities, that helps us create jobs and move into that future together. So I'm grateful to be part of this. Our work is not done, but I have a lot of confidence in this team that we're going to get this done. God bless you and thank you.